Back at it here, June 20th, 2024, episode number 28. Lots has happened since our last podcast, and we're right in the thick of the racing season, both for us local people who race in our own areas and, of course, the World Cup. And even the Lifetime Grand Prix is about to get going again, which is not mountain biking per se, but there's a few events that I consider mountain biking, so that's kind of cool. Lots and lots of stuff that has happened since, so we might as well get going.
This is Short Travel Magazine.
Short Travel Magazine.
Changing gears. More new stuff we don't really need.
All right, first up, let's do some Sram news. I've mentioned this several times, but the new, they're calling it, I believe, the Axis Pod Rocker Paddle is the official name. This is the new, I call it a shifter. What do they call it? Controller, whatever you want to call it. This is the new pod that mimics the original design, which personally, between the original paddle and the new pod where it was just two buttons, I quickly realized I hated the new design with the two buttons. First of all, the whole thing was barely adjustable. It's pretty much rotated on your bars. That's it. It looks like it should be able to be rotated in multiple directions, and that's not the case. Anyway, they did finally release officially the Axis Pod Rocker Panel, and if I had to get a new pod, that of course would be a no-brainer. Now, the interesting thing about it is they also made a identical version for the left side of the bars, which is cool because I always thought it looked nice to have matching left and right, underbar shifter designs. Interesting though, they really just did a plastic piece again that takes the place of the two buttons. So this is not a new design by any stretch of the imagination. It's just giving you another option as far as the plastic piece that fits over the pod. Now, if you count, I was trying to think the other day how many versions of these things they've had. They had the original rocker panel. Then they came out with that version that barely in my opinion, mimicked the underbar mechanical style, which I could not get to fit on with my Shimano brakes. The thing just could not get that in the right spot. So there's two. And then, of course, the new pod, or two-button pod, came in two versions, two different style of buttons on there, which people seem to have issues with them falling off. That's something that has come up quite often whenever these things are being discussed. So that's four versions, and now we have this new one. So there's been 5 versions, all using the exact same system of two buttons really being touched upon. Okay, so 5. And the only downside I can see to this new one, and it's better than nothing, is it's the ability to shift with your index finger from the front of the bike. This is, of course, nothing new to Shimano people. That's the whole reason I stuck with Shimano mechanical for a million years, was that they had the ability to just reach around and do a shift with your index finger without even moving your thumb. That's really handy. I find it very useful. And as soon as I got the original Axis, that's the first thing I was excited about. Now this new system, the whole piece on the original Axis shifter moved for the shifting. The whole back of the unit was essentially a way to hit the button. Now it's a very tiny little sliver, looks maybe a 1/4 inch wide at the end of the pod, the outward facing portion of the pod. And that's all you really get. So technically you can still shift from behind, but it looks to be a much more constrained system. So I could see why they did it. They didn't have much of a choice. Heaven forbid they come up with a third design, but I don't know if it's a patent thing or why SRAM cannot add 3 discrete buttons to these things. It's always 2. And then when you try to shift from behind, you have to pick one or the other. Whatever the other side of the shifter is that goes up or down, that's what you get from the back. Why we can't have 3 buttons on one shifter, I'll never understand. You could do your thumb to shift up and down, and you could have your index finger be the dropper post. That makes so much sense to me, but who knows? I can't imagine why they wouldn't have done that already. So that's kind of cool. You could buy it brand new. You could buy it as just a replacement piece, but it basically looks exactly like the old one from the front, more or less. So that's kind of cool. Now let's talk about something interesting. There's a bike brand called Viral Wanderer. If you do some googling, Viral Wanderer. It is a interesting bike. Now, I've never heard of Viral, and it's not cheap, and it's not carbon, which is interesting. But the thing that I find interesting in my notes when I wrote this down say, is this the future of mountain bikes 5-10 years down the road? So we have a hardtail, but it has a pinion drive, which, you hear everybody, pinion drives are the future. Why are we still using chains and derailleurs? Pinion drive gearboxes, right? And there's plenty of reasons why we haven't switched at the high end on these things yet. But that doesn't mean we won't someday in the future. Anyway, this is a bike with 100 mil travel. It's got a SID on the front. Full-size mountain bike wheels, but it has very shallow drop bars. And again, the pinion drive. It actually is really quite cool looking bike. It looks like, actually, I think that's titanium now that I look at it. But the whole interesting thing to me is it's got 2 water bottles, of course. It would make a killer gravel bike for people who mainly do mountain biking like myself. And they start at $5,000, so we're not talking something you could just, just buy on a whim. At least I can't. But I do think that in 10 years, gearboxes, shallow drop bars, and full mountain bike tires could be what's considered a normal gravel mountain bike. We'll see. But it's kind of cool. There's so many of these new bike brands and brands I've never heard of. I don't know how the market can support so many brands like Viral. I mean, maybe in their home, I don't think they're an American company. I could be wrong. But I just don't quite understand how there can be so many of these brands. Because I never see any of these bikes. I never see them for sale in a shop. I never see them at a race. But there's millions of these brands out there. So hopefully they got something unique enough and they will do well with it. Electronic suspension has made some strides, of course. The new BMC 4-stroke has the Öhlins version. They have got their own electronic suspension. So that means we now have, of course, RockShox, Fox, who I really don't hear anything about anymore. And Öhlins now has a fully electronic suspension. And, of course, we have the Suntour, the Axon. So you got 4 systems right now in the market. And I have to figure anybody who makes suspension of any kind is probably working on something. I mean, we have Fox as a new wireless seat post coming out, which to me is quite interesting. I believe that's the model where they put the battery at the bottom of the post. and you would charge it. In other words, there's no replaceable battery. The battery is a little bigger and it's into the base of the post, so it looks like a regular seat post. I'm assuming there's a USB port at the top where you would charge it, but that's about all you could really do, because the other 2 or 3 electronic dropper posts out there are all just compromises because they all use different batteries, and that's the whole point of the SRAM system, is everything they have uses the same battery, which is, of course, patented for now. So the electronic suspension, I just read some interesting reviews on the new trail bike, and more, not really downhill, but although they are, apparently approved for downhill. But this is, we had this super gnarly version of Flight Attendant, and then we had the cross-country version not too long ago. So this is like the middle ground, like trail bikes, Pike and Zed and those forks. And I don't know why, but I wanted to read all the reviews, and I did. And it seems there are some issues that I never even thought about with climbing. And this particular reviewer had some issues with the thing, seeing that he was climbing and basically firming the entire suspension up, which sounds like a good idea maybe for a cross-country race environment. That's what you'd want. But he was like, I really wanted that thing open because I wanted the traction afforded by having the full suspension open. And it kind of locked it down, thinking you wanted it that way. So that got me thinking, is Flight Attendant really the future? Is electronic suspension, where it thinks for you, is that really ever going to get to the point where it is superior to manually triggering a change in your suspension? I'm not saying yes or no, because what do I know? I can imagine it being not an option in 5 years. In other words, SRAM's top-end components will only be Flight Attendant. But I still think there would be a huge market right now if SRAM simply gave us wireless lockouts for our existing forks and shocks. I don't quite get why they went all the way in with this machine learning crap where it's trying to guess what you're going to do and learns what you're going to do. I know it's a pain to run a couple cables to your rear shock and your fork. So if you're going to push this wireless thing, why not just be able to cycle through with one button? 1, 2, 3, locked out, middle, and wide open wirelessly, without all the extra complexity, and more importantly, without the extra requirement of having a power meter. A lot of people still have absolutely no use for a power meter at the mountain bike level. Yet they would love to have a wireless lockout just for cable tidiness and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It seems like we're skipping over kind of the middle ground, which would be a nice lead up. We're just going right into the... so maybe that's what the Olin's and some of these other systems, maybe they're experimenting with less intrusive versions of that. So that's it. What else? Bird spokes, of course. I always liked bird spokes. They are now, between Cannondale and Ineos Grenadiers, the 2 top riders there. I mean, you're starting to see them. Of course, Avancini Racing. So there's 3 big teams now at the World Cup level, all using bird spokes. So that's kind of neat for a little company in Minnesota. I don't know how many more we'll be seeing, but that's not bad considering there were 0 before. So hats off to them. Some more wheel stuff. Let's talk about stands. Now, everybody remembers stands. I personally only have limited experience with stands. I tried stand sealant back in the day and did not have great luck with it, I'll be honest. Dried out very quickly for me. and did not seal a couple punctures. So this was now, going on 5 years ago. I was kind of late to the tubeless game, I'll admit. But I went to Orange Seal. I read an article in Mountain Bike Action when it came out, and they seemed to think it was really good. So that's what I've been using ever since. I dabbled last 6 months with the Silka sealant, but I have had a few things that I didn't particularly love about it, so I just decided to. It's great stuff. I mean, it definitely plugs holes, but I like to shoot my sealant through the valve stem, and it says not to do that, and I hate popping the tire off to pour in sealant, so that was probably the main issue. Other than that, the stuff seals great. So I went back to Orange Seal, but it got me thinking. For a little while, I had some Stan's Podium SRD wheels. This was their super uber light. Went through this phase there a couple years ago where I wanted the lightest wheels. Why, I don't know. I realized last summer it's a complete fool's game to waste money on super lightweight, not just wheels, on just about anything. When you're finishing middle of the pack at races, and who gives a crap? So I've given up my weight weenieism. I'll be honest, it's just kind of a revelation I had last year. So this was during a period where I actually bought 2 or 3 sets of carbon wheels and kind of wanted to see which ones I liked. I got them all at a discount. So the Podium SRD wheels were, I remember weighing them, they were 1,301 grams for the set, which felt like air. I also bought a pair of the XMC 1200 wheels off of eBay, and XMC was their kind of enduro wheels, so I knew they weren't the lightest, and they weighed 1,450 grams, so not much more. They were a little wider internal, not that I care about that, but those I kept just because they're such beautiful wheels and the hubs were so nice. But the stands I didn't like for several reasons and sold them off. Actually didn't lose anything because I got a really good deal on them. And I used to see the SRD wheels, the Podiums. They were on many bikes for a few years. Jeff Kabush had them. Payson I can never say his name. McKelvin. He had them. Team Orange Seal was using them. So no, not Team Orange Seal. I think it was Pivot. Pivot team was using them. So I thought, it was pretty good wheels. Didn't like the hubs, but just for the heck of it, I got an email the other day from Stan's, 35% off all wheels. Like, oh, it's a fair, they were around $2,000 back in the day. So I'm thinking, geez, it'd be like $600-700 off. Put them down in the $1,300-1,400 range for a set. That's pretty reasonable. So I went to their website. I want to see what they're doing. Maybe they've replaced it, that model, and maybe they've gone lighter. And lo and behold, I don't see any at all. They've been discontinued, and they don't have any real. They have cross-country wheels, which are alloy, the Crest. So they don't really have any carbon rims anymore. And I don't know. I mean, they weren't making their carbon rims, I'm pretty sure. But they didn't have any. So it got me thinking, And I looked at their whole offering of wheels. I don't know. There's not very many. All pretty much the same rims, just different spokes. So I thought, is Stan's just flat out getting kind of out of the wheel game? I certainly don't see them anymore like I used to. I still have a set, the rims on some DT hubs for my fat bike. I had some 29er wheels built for my fat bike, and that's what the builder threw on there. So I find that interesting. It stands kind of out of the high-end wheel game. It appears maybe that they are. I will say, it's kind of sad actually, because, they are an American company, and I like to support American companies. I will say they're new, and this sounds ridiculous, but their new sealant doohickey, what do you call it? Injector. Actually, for $15, looks really, really, really nice. So I may actually buy one of those because I don't particularly like the one I have. So, I mean, they're still out there, still doing stuff. I'd have to think that most of their income is coming from their sealant still. But I don't know. Just kind of felt like, after looking at their website, that Stans maybe has kind of stepped back from their once kind of mighty position of kind of the king of wheels. I could be wrong. My other note here says there's no XD rear drivers on their XC wheels, which is really weird. I can't believe that's true, but that's what it says. So whatever. We're going a long time here on the gear thing, but that's because there's all kinds of great stuff. Let's do some super fast gear news. Ellsworth says they're back. Anybody remember Ellsworth? Ellsworth Truth, I remember, was a cross-country bike made out of aluminum. It was so cool. It was light. It's kind of had gigantic swing arm linkage, if you remember. They're back again for like the 10th time. I looked at their bikes. It's like, yeah, these are just yet another bike made in Taiwan, carbon frame, completely run-of-the-mill. I don't understand why even bother. Who even remembers them anymore? The younger people, they have absolutely no memory of Ellsworth. And so there's no history there. And I, as an old dude, wouldn't bother buying one, just a carbon frame that you can get from about a million other places. So interesting. Let's talk tires. Koretsky won the short track a couple races ago on gravel tires. Actual specialized Pathfinder gravel tires. I think they were 45 millimeter. I don't know. They were pretty skinny. 48 maybe. But I've seen no more mention. I kind of thought everybody was going to start switching to gravel tires, but I've seen nothing since. So maybe that'll just die out a slow death. What else? Maxxis Severe Mud Tires. They got an actual official mud tire, which is cool. I wish more people would release actual mud tires, because once in a while you need them. I had some back in the old days, some giant knobbed mud tires. I can't remember who made them. IRC, I think, maybe. And they were fantastic in the mud. I mean, they had they were specialized, actually. That's right. They were called Extreme Condition Ground Control or something. And you could ride through the thickest, crappiest mud, and you wouldn't get much buildup, and you could fly right through it. So that's kind of cool. I've been looking for mud tires. What else? I already mentioned the wireless Fox dropper. That's just a no-brainer. We'll see how that one goes. 3D printed shoes. Anybody who's got shoe issues like me, there's a company called Lore who is now making custom shoes 3D printed to your feet. Makes perfect sense, except that they're not mountain bike shoes. And, of course, they cost a fortune. I think they're like $2,000 or something. While we're talking 3D customized stuff, Physique, of course, just announced, I don't know if you noticed, they will 3D print a saddle for you. You go to a certain, I don't know where they're located. There's probably going to be two, maybe one in Colorado and one in California. I don't know. I haven't looked. You will sit on your current bike, and they will put a little mapper thing on your seat, and they will pedal while you're on a certain Wahoo kicker trainer, and they will 3D map where your pressure spots are on your seat. Then they will use that data, and they will first pick a shape of a Physique saddle for you. You know, they have like 15 different shapes. It will first recommend the master overall shape, and then it will actually create you a saddle. They will send it back. I think it's Germany's where they're made. They will print the saddle to your butt, send it back to you for a starting price of $500, $600 if you want the carbon rails. Now that actually, as much as that pains me to say, $500 for that doesn't sound 100% out of line with reality. Anybody who rides more than an hour knows sometimes, for me, I can ride like an hour, hour and a half. I'm fine on my current saddles, which are all the exact same saddles on my couple bikes. And I start getting butt pain enough to where that becomes kind of the most uncomfortable part of my ride. It's not my legs or my lungs running out of steam, It's my butt kind of hurts. I got to stand up and shift around and all that stuff. So $500, if it actually fixed that type of a discomfort, I actually be all in on that. But will that ever happen? I don't know. I would give it a try if there was one locally, but there probably isn't going to be one locally anytime soon. And there's already a company who is doing the 3D printing saddles. It's much harder to. They don't map your actual saddle. They kind of take pictures of. I don't know. I don't get it, but the whole thing is kind of interesting. So maybe 5 years time, this will be specialized, or somebody will have 3D printers right in each dealer, and they will make it for you right there. I think that would be a game changer. Maybe the shoes. What the heck? 3D print everything for you. Maybe grips, maybe insoles, maybe your saddle. Pretty much all your personal data, for your body would be available to use on a 3D printed system. Interesting. What else? That's it. Let's move on. There's actually quite a bit more, but I'm getting bored. Let's go on to something else.
Hot. And not so hot.
All right, we're definitely going to start with a not. This is not hot, and that is what happened to Bentonville, Arkansas trails and the Bike Fest a few weeks back. Of course, tornado, severe weather went through right during the expo and pretty much just wiped everything out, which, people can replace their tents and all that stuff, but what happened to the trails is heartbreaking. I mean, sounds like it literally just trashed virtually every trail around there. Enough so that I don't think even now, a couple weeks later, they're still even close to being all cleaned up. So that's too bad. So that's a not. But a contrasting hot is the Waltons, who've pretty much kind of built up that whole area, bought 2,700 more acres for trails north of Bentonville. 2,700 acres more. This is not total. This is in addition to what's there already. So obviously somebody down there really wants this area to become I'm going to call it the new Colorado, the new Moab, if you will. Because back in the day, everybody talked about going to Moab or riding in Colorado, Durango, and all those areas. So I don't hear much talk at all about that. Very few people ever mention Moab anymore. And to be honest, the last time I was there 2, 3, 4 years ago, the place was so built up that I wouldn't probably even think about riding there anymore either. So it seems to be the southeast is where the action is. South, I guess, maybe that's just south. So hats off to them. 2,000. I wonder how many acres that actually is now. It's got to be an insane amount. Let's talk about Zwift a little bit. I know this is kind of weird to talk about this in the middle of the year, but I'm going not on Zwift, raising the price to $20 a month. Is that a lot of money for what you get? No. People I know, my cousin in particular, hey Mike, if you're listening to this, live on Zwift even this time of year. I haven't checked, but he's probably riding it a few days while it's hot out, and rides it almost every day during the the cold, wet months in the upper Midwest here. So $15, $20, what's another $5? I get it. I actually, if it just kind of reinstated my subscription for a month or two, because I really do kind of miss the familiarity of it. I guess that's what got me to come back. I've been dabbling with other platforms back in like March and April, and they were okay, but I just missed how familiar everything was to me on Zwift. So I just started up again for 15, and then they raised it to 20, and so I bailed. And I'm probably not going back. I just don't use 90% of the stuff they keep adding to it. So it makes no sense. If I'm just going to pedal staring at something, I can do that with my Whoop or one or two of the other freebies out there. So that's kind of a bummer. $240 a year. I think it's cheaper if you buy the year up front, but you know they're going to go to $25 a month sooner rather than later. They did go a very long time. I think they said 7 years. I get it, but it's like the post office raising the price of stamps up to 70 something cents coming soon. If they're not already, pretty soon they'll be $1. You know, people aren't sending mail, so they're not making money, so they raise the stamps, and then that says to people, well, now I'm really not sending any mail, and you just guarantee yourself a bankruptcy. So I get it. I know why they have to do it, and I can't imagine membership with Zwift is raising every year, but still, it seems like if they offered, for example, a dedicated mountain bike mode or something, because I actually ride my mountain bike on the trainer, which is weird because it looks like I'm riding a road bike. And there, I would love to have a few race courses, 15 miles, whatever the normal cross. Let's take a World Cup lap and just simulate that and give me 4 laps, whatever they do. I would love to do it that way. I want to train on my stupid Zwift thing the way I would ride all year long. I don't want to have to suddenly become a roadie and worry about that stuff. So that's just me. If they had an actual mountain bike kind of dedicated area, I would probably be thrilled to death. Why can't they recreate a typical mountain bike race course with the banners and the tape along the side and a couple jump looking things? I mean, that would be amazing. And more importantly, the ups and downs and sprints that you need to do for a mountain bike race. It's not the same just sitting there on a road hammering out miles and miles. I would much rather simulate actual mountain bike type efforts, and they could do it. They can't, and nobody has done it. There is no platform out there that has seemed to give 2 craps about mountain bikers using their system. So that's a not for me. What else? I guess you could say hot is going to be the GCN announcement that they're now independent and they have been purchased back from Warner Brothers Discovery. I guess that's a hot. Although I've been watching them, I barely watch them at all. I almost never watch their GMBN stuff. Dottie left, which he'd been there since the beginning. He was, at least knowledgeable and had a appreciation for the old, early 90s and mid 90s mountain bike stuff. So he was a nice enough dude. I like listening to his videos. But the rest of it, I'm back to not caring. The only highlight for me was their app, so that I could find them races to watch. I subscribed just so I didn't have to scroll through 700 other sports. I don't care about track and soccer and NASCAR. I just want to go to one page. Here's all the bike races. Click and watch. And that's what the app was great for, and that's what I paid for every year. And of course, they're not bringing any of that back because they don't own the rights to any of that anymore. They've killed their website completely. They're going back to just a YouTube channel, which makes sense. The original 2 founders are back, so who knows? I guess that's a hot. I'm going to call it a kind of a in-between on that one. What else? The Nino Never Quit series of videos, number 2 was just dropped yesterday. They're very short videos. Honestly, you don't really learn much. You know what I mean? They've already interviewed this guy for the last 20 years about 8 million times. I was kind of hoping to see something new information, new behind the scenes something. So I'm going not on the Nino Never Quit. I mean, he did just win number 36. Spoiler if you didn't watch the race yet, which I can't imagine you didn't. But he did just win again a few days ago in Val di Sole. So that's kind of cool. I hope he sticks around another year, but that's kind of a not. So that's about it. That's enough complaining. A couple quick tidbits and then we'll wrap it up.
Interesting tidbits. Curated just for you.
All right, now we got a recent, I think it was Pink Bike. Yes, Pink Bike article about bike weights. They weighed 5 or 7 bikes from the recent, or 10 bikes, recent cross-country race in Val d'Isole, the World Cup. They weighed the pros' bikes, and this is one of my absolute favorite things. I wish I could do this myself, but obviously I'm not in Europe, so that ain't going to happen. But they were all 23 pounds. A few of them were pushing 24 pounds. They basically weigh the exact same as what my bike weighs. When race day comes, it's like 23 and a half pounds, my bike. And I always wanted a 22-pound bike, but now granted, most of their bikes are 120 mil travel, although not the Trek stuff. It's 110 front, 80 in the rear. But still, they're all 23 and a half, and a few pushing 24. And of course, most of them have power meters and 120 mil travel and dropper posts. But still, these are the absolute state-of-the-art, best components money can buy. And they're 24-pound bikes, in my opinion. So it's kind of cool. Makes everybody not feel so bad who knows they would like a lighter bike, but realizes, you know what, it really doesn't matter. 26-pound bike is not going to keep you from winning or 50th place, So anyway, I thought that was interesting. Dylan Johnson had I don't know if you follow him, he's more of a gravel dude, although he's done plenty of mountain bike races. He doesn't really do the short cross-country stuff anymore. I don't know if he ever did. He's more of a marathon long guy. He's doing all the Lifetime Grand Prix races, but he's always playing around with his bike, and I appreciate that. I enjoy that. And he had a tire width versus watt loss chart. And he also did some aerodynamics testing with tire width. And it's very interesting. If you ever Google it, look on YouTube, find his video. But I think you'd be surprised at what he found. And this pertains to me for mountain biking because, I'm still using 2.2 tires. Seems like most people have stepped up wider. I don't really care for the super giant tires myself. 2.2 is plenty. But that was pretty interesting. So check that out. Also, Peter Sagan, everybody's favorite road guy who wanted to be a mountain biker this year and turned up to not be a mountain biker. He's really never done much on a mountain bike since he converted to a full-time road racer. But he loves mountain biking. I just read an article today, actually. He says that's his favorite form of biking, and he really wished he could do something better this year. But my point is, apparently he's been doing 1 million commercials for various products and full-on acting skills. And they're funny as heck. I mean, they're really funny. So go Google or look on YouTube, Peter Sagan acting. I was on a Canadian website where I saw it. So I'm assuming these commercials were all over in Europe. But there's probably 10 of them where he'd take on different characters. And they were a riot. So I don't know why we never saw those before, but that's really cool. Lastly, and this could fall in the racing category, but Specialized has retro outfits, 50-year anniversary. Black, yellow, and red is kind of their original colors. And they actually look very much like the original outfits, almost identical. So I found that very cool because I really, really, really dislike their 2024 outfits with the pink forks and the teal frames and the jerseys with the big splotches of ugly 80s color. I don't get that. I'm a graphic designer, so to me, right, colors and things, I'm always looking at them. I know what I like. I know what I think looks good and doesn't. Of course, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I'm sure plenty of people think they're really cool. They look just like Cannondale from last year. Cannondale had that same concept, and now Specialized did it for this year. So I was really nice to see everybody wearing what I consider more traditional it stands out more to me too. The black and the yellow and the red. So that's kind of cool. All right. Very, very short racing update. And then we're done.
Racing news and views.
All right. Very quick racing news here for the few of you who care. My biggest news is that Pauline Ferrand-Prévot has officially said it, what everybody figured, that she is done with mountain biking. She is off of Ineos Grenadiers. She will race for Visma Lisa Bike with Marianne Vos, who is, I really like her. She's a great cross racer too. So she's going to the big leagues, and I think her boyfriend, Dylan Van Barle, I believe he races for them already for Visma Lisa Bike. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings. I don't really care either way, of course. It's her life, but I can say I don't really think I'm going to miss her on the mountain bike scene. Where she just kind of shows up at a few races a year now, wins all the world championships, and then that's it. So whatever, but that's an end of an era for sure. I'm not sure what Pidcock is going to do, but the last couple World Cups after Brazil have been really, really, I find it interesting. I am kind of pissed at they're not showing the under 23 races as they promised. They didn't show them last weekend. They said they were going to show for free on YouTube the women and men under 23 XCO. They did not even mention it. They didn't say why. And I looked, and as of last night, 2 days, one day, I think it's tomorrow, they still haven't shown the preview coming up. So I'm guessing they're not showing them again tomorrow. I don't get it. I find them just as entertaining, and with Riley Amos from Trek and Isabella Holmgren from Canada, young racers, they're killing it. They should show these races. I mean, you already got the cameras and crap set up. Just show them. Jeez, I don't understand why you say you're going to do it and then you don't do it. So that's a bummer. Nice interview with Sam Gaze. Everybody remembers Sam Gaze when he was a cranky, mean SOB. That's what I like to think anyway. And this was, years ago when he first beat Nino. He's one of the few people at the time who actually beat Nino in a race. And it was a brutal race of them two back and forth, and Sam Gaze got the better of him. But I don't know, then you hear a lot of stories about what a prick he was, and he said crap to people who he beat in his home country, and everybody seemed to not like this guy. He was a hothead. Then, of course, this is a very condensed version of Sam Gaze, the athlete. Then he crashed at Cape Epic, I believe, and did something to his head, and it was, 3 years or so? 2-3 years where you didn't hear a word from him. He was making a slow comeback, and now, at least at short track, he is kind of unbeatable. The guy seems to have that Vanderpool burst of power at the end there. My point of all this is they've been interviewing him more because he's been winning, and he seems like the coolest, mellowest dude now. So I don't know if he's just putting on a show, but I really like kind of how his interviews go. He just seems like a nice, serious kind of dude. He's also kind of funny, which you wouldn't guess, but he mentioned this was something funny from the Nova Mesto race, I think, or was it the Val de I don't remember. One of his earlier days racing, they asked him, do you remember this particular race? And he remembered. He had 2 pizzas and a liter of Coke and some fritters, which I'm guessing are like donuts or something, the night before a race. And that brought a smile to my face because I remember one of my early races up in Traverse City, Michigan. That is indeed what I ate the night before a race, was 1 giant pizza and about 3 Cokes. And funny story, somebody from Team Yeti, I don't know who it was to this day. I wish I would have known. They had the full, this was in 1991, remind you, at a Norba World Cup race. I don't remember for which one. It was Traverse City. I don't remember if it was a World Cup that year. They walked by and looked at me. It was 2 members of Team Yeti, and they had their whole outfit on. They said, wow, you're really, eating like a champion the night before a race, something like that. He made some crack about my pizza. So I always found that funny. So that's kind of cool. What else? Of course, we have another weekend at Crans, Montana. Is that how you say it? Switzerland this weekend, so check that out. The track looks kind of crazy. I'm not going to say too much about it. It may end up being a no big deal type of a track, but it looks, if it rained especially, like it could be pretty hairy. Kind of unnecessarily so. I don't like these tracks where they try to make them so crazy and difficult. I don't get it. It's about lungs and legs. I like to see that kind of as the theme. But anyway, that's it for the racing. There's much going on. I haven't raced in quite a while, almost 2 months now. I'm going to head out to Wisconsin, I think on Sunday, for a track that has a tremendous amount of climbing, and I know I suck at climbing, and I had my first crash in many years at this place 2 years ago. So I keep feeling like I need to go back there, like I have something to prove to myself. See if I can get through without crashing and see if I can get up the hills without dying. So I'm going to give that a go. It's about 100 degrees here in the upper Midwest. It's going to be brutal on Sunday. So that's that. I think that's a wrap. Yes, I got some video stuff coming. I just decided to chill on the videos. I'm not sure anybody really wants to watch them at this stage. I will say I have something we're going to do with Brian from Arizona. He doesn't know it yet if he's listening to this, but I have got an idea. We're going to bring him into the fray a little bit in a special way. So that's it for now. Talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thank you ever so much for listening to Short Travel Magazine.